Leon Tolstoy, 1828–1910, Lev Nikolaevich Tolstoy, Leon Tolstoy, was born in Yasnaya Polyana, Tula, Russia, on August 28, 1828, into a wealthy family of aristocratic origin. His father was Count Nikolai Ilyich Tolstoy and his mother Princess Maria Nikolaevna Volkonsky. He grew up with his paternal aunts on the large family ranch after his parents passed away when he was still a child. He had a sister named Maria and 3 brothers named Sergei, Nicholas and Dmitry. Beginning in 1844, Leon studied at the University of Kazan, building on Oriental laws and languages, but abandoned his studies in 1847 unhappy with educational methods. He participated, from the year 1851, in various military expeditions in the Caucasus and in the Crimean War. Tolstoy began to write for various publications in the mid-19th century, including the magazine Savremennik, founded in the city of St. Petersburg by Alexander Pushkin and edited in Tolstoy by Nikolai Nekrasov. His first book was Childhood, 1852, followed by Adolescence, 1852–54, and Youth, 1857, an autobiographical trilogy. In Tales of Sebastopol, 1855–1856, he recalled his war-time. Later he published Conjugal Happiness, 1859. His social and supportive spirit led him to found a school in 1857 attended by the children of the peasants who worked on his farm. He also created a magazine called Yasnaya Polyana, in which he exposed his pedagogical ideas. In 1862 he married Sofia Andreyevna Burz, whom the writer called Sonia. The couple had 14 children. War and Peace, 1865–1869, and Anna Karenina, 1878, are his best-known novels. Simple in style, realistic perspective and psychological incision in its characters. Other important titles of the Russian author are The Cossacks, 1863, The Death of Ivan Ilyich, 1886, Sonata to Kreutzer, 1889, or Resurrection, 1899. As for short stories, some titles of his bibliography are La Ridada, 1853, La Tormented and Neve, 1856, 3 Deaths, 1859, How Much Land Does a Man Need, 1886, Too Expensive, 1897, Father Sergio, 1898, 3 Questions, 1903, or The Devil, 1911. The last stage of his work, marked by various misfortunes, such as the death of 2 of his children, is characterized by its conflicts and spiritual, ethical and philosophical reflections. Bases of titles such as Confusion, 1879, N.K. Consist Me Faith, 1882, The Church and the State, 1891, or The Christian Doctrine, 1897, books in which he reveals his belief in love and humility as the main basis of the human being. For these texts he was excommunicated by the Orthodox Church in 1901. He also wrote transcendental artistic essays such as What is Art, 1897. Leon Tolstoy died in the Ostapovo train station, Ryazan, Russia, on November 20, 1910, when he tried to leave his possessions to be isolated in some solitary territory. He was 82 years old. His unique tomb, without name or symbolism, a burial mound of grass, flowers and leaves, was located in a forest on his estate in Yasnaya Polyana. Some of his works: Childhood, St. Petersburg, 1852, Adolescence, St. Petersburg, 1854, Stories from Sevastopol, St. Petersburg, 1855, Youth, St. Petersburg, 1856, Marital Happiness, St. Petersburg, 1859. The Cossacks, St. Petersburg, 1863, War and Peace, St. Petersburg, 1865–1869, Anna Karenina, St. Petersburg, 1875–1877, The Death of Ivan Ilyich, St. Petersburg, 1886, The Kingdom of God is in You, Germany, 1894, Fyodor Dostoevsky. Fyodor, or Fedor, Mijailovich Dostoyevsky, or Dostoyevsky, was born on November 11, 1821 in the Russian city of Moscow, specifically in the hospital for the poor where his father Mikhail worked as a doctor. This father was an alcoholic man with a strong personality and a dictatorial attitude, quite the opposite of his mother Maria Fyodorovna Nikeva, a loving woman of good character and a lover of culture. At the age of 11, Fiodor and his large family, he had 7 siblings, moved to the village of Durovo, in Tula, where his father had bought some land. In 1837 the young Dostoyevsky suffered the loss of his mother, who died of tuberculosis. A year later he moved with his brother Mikhail to study in St. Petersburg at the School of Military Engineers. His brother was not accepted due to physical problems. Fyodor finished his training at the age of 22 with the rank of second lieutenant. At that time he began to become fond of gambling, a playful habit that led to numerous debts throughout his existence. In 1839 his father died, assassinated at the hands of his servants, fed up with the despotic procedures of their employer. The Kimonin family took care of the deceased's children. This fact caused Dostoyevsky to have a nervous breakdown and his first epileptic seizures. In 1849 he was arrested while in the Petrashkovsky circle. He was accused of debating the socialist and liberal ideas that emerged in France. Condemned to death under Tsar Nicholas I, he managed to have his sentence commuted to 4 years in Siberia, being transferred to the fortress of Omsk. Later he was sent as a private to Semipalatinsk. These experiences inspired titles such as Memories of the House of the Dead, 1861, or Memories of the Underground, 1864. During his stay in Siberia he dedicated a lot of time to reading the Bible, soaking up spirituality and taking from his writings the value of suffering as liberation and existential salvation. In 1857 he married Maria Dmitrievna, a widowed woman with whom he could not be happy. That same year, the new Tsar Alexander II granted an amnesty and Fyodor regained his lineage and creative freedom. In 1859 he published the comedy Stepanchikovo and its Inhabitants. In 1861, together with his brother Mijail, he founded the magazine El Tiempo, where he published some of his works. Shortly before the magazine ended up being censored and closed in 1863. Later he created Epoca, where he published several stories, including the satire The Crocodile. 1864 was a tragic year for the Russian author, as he lost his wife to tuberculosis. His brother Mikhail, with whom he was very close, also passed away. 2 years earlier, Dostoyevsky met the woman of his life, the red-haired student Apollinaria, Polina Suslova, with whom he had a passionate romance until 1865, the year in which Polina rejected his marriage proposal. With Polina he had traveled a large part of Europe, a trip that inspired the book Winter Notes on Summer Impressions, 1863, in which he was very critical of European environments. In 1866 he married his private secretary, Anna Grigorievna Snitkina, with whom he traveled through Europe again to forget about the multiple creditors who harassed him for gambling debts. In the last stage of his life he published some of his best works, such as The Player, 1866, written for the publisher Stelovsky, The Idiot, 1866, Crime and Punishment, 1866, work commissioned by Katkov, the director of the Russian Messenger, where the work is published in installments. The Eternal Husband, 1870. The Indmanes, 1872, Diary of a Writer, written between 1873 and 1881, and one of his masterpieces, Los Hermanos Karamazov, 1880, an exemplary novel in the psychological depth of its characters and in the configuration of a complex social portrait. One of his last reissues in Spanish has been the short novel La Dulce, 1876. The German Reinhard Loth wrote about its philosophical aspects in the essay I Have Seen the Truth. Fyodor Dostoyevsky died in St. Petersburg on February 9, 1881. He was 59 years old. He had 4 children, 2 women named Sonia and Luvard, and 2 boys named Fyodor and Alexei, all four of whom were the result of his marriage to Anna Grigorievna. He is buried in the Alexander Nevsky Monastery in St. Petersburg.